The emergency alarm echoed through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building on Centaurus Prime. Ambassador Velthar rushed into the main chamber, his 4 arms carrying data tablets that glowed with urgent red warnings. The representatives from dozens of star systems were already gathering, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electronic tones. Commander Juan entered the human section quietly, his worn military uniform simple compared to the elaborate garments worn by other species. He had been expecting this meeting for weeks, ever since the first reports started coming in from the Outer Rim territories. Dr. Minji followed behind him, her medical scanner still beeping softly as she reviewed the latest data from the frontier worlds. Velthar activated the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. The 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing thousands of star systems connected by glowing trade routes and communication lines. But something was wrong. Large sections of the Outer Rim showed as dark zones, empty of the usual network signals. Fellow representatives, Velthar began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. We face an unprecedented crisis. The Keepers have vanished. A ripple of shock ran through the assembled aliens. The Keepers had been a constant presence in galactic civilization for over 3,000 years. They were mysterious beings who maintained the vast network of relay stations, emergency beacons, and automated systems that kept the far reaches of the galaxy connected to civilization. No one knew much about them, but they had never failed in their duties. "Show us the affected areas," demanded the crystalline voice of High Counselor Zenth from the Alterian Empire. The holographic display zoomed in on the Outer Rim. 17 entire sectors appeared as dead zones, their keeper stations silent and dark. These were not empty regions of space. Millions of colonists, researchers, miners, and their families lived on the worlds, scattered throughout these sectors. They depended on the Keeper network for everything from medical supplies to communication with their home worlds. Dr. Minji leaned forward in her seat, her face pale as she calculated the numbers. 3.7 million beings, she whispered. Tuwan, humans, Zelari, Corvin, dozens of other species, all cut off. The debate that followed was predictable. The Corinthian Trade Federation spoke about the economic impossibility of reaching such distant territories. The Alterian Empire discussed the dangerous space phenomena that made travel to the Outer Rim hazardous, even under normal circumstances. The Centauri Federation calculated the resources required for such a massive operation and declared it beyond their current capabilities. "The Outer Rim has always been a risky frontier," declared Ambassador Thomases of the Corinthian Federation. "Those who chose to settle there knew the dangers. We cannot risk the lives of our core world populations for what may already be a lost cause." Juan watched the proceedings with growing frustration. These were some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, with technology that could bend space and time, create artificial planets, and communicate across vast distances instantly. Yet they spoke of the Outer Rim crisis as if it were a natural disaster beyond their control. "What about rescue operations?" asked a representative from the smaller Epsilon Alliance. "Surely we can reach some of the affected colonies." High Counselor Zenth's response was swift and final. "The routes to the Outer Rim pass through unstable wormhole clusters and radiation fields that destroyed several Keeper vessels. Our ships are not designed for such hazardous conditions. The risk to our crews would be unacceptable." The discussion continued for hours, but Juan could see where it was heading. Each species had logical reasons why they could not help. The distances were too great, the dangers too severe, the resources too limited. By the time the session ended, the conclusion was clear. The Outer Rim territories would be classified as unreachable until the Keeper crisis could be resolved through diplomatic channels. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Juan remained seated, staring at the holographic display, still showing the dark zones where millions of beings waited for help that would never come. Dr. Minji placed a hand on his shoulder. They are not wrong about the dangers, she said quietly. The outer rim routes are treacherous. Many ships have been lost trying to navigate those regions, even with keeper guidance. Juan nodded slowly. I know, but 3.7 million people, Mingi, human families, who went out there to build new lives, alien colonists who trusted that civilization would not abandon them, children who do not understand why the supply ships stopped coming. He stood up and began walking toward the exit, his mind already working on a plan that would probably be considered impossible by every advanced civilization in the galaxy. But humanity had never let impossibilities stop them before. Where are you going? Dr. Minji asked, hurrying to catch up. To send some messages, Juan replied. The council may have given up on the outer rim, but I know some people who might see things differently. As they left the chamber, the holographic display continued to show the dark zones of the outer rim, waiting in silence for someone to care enough to try. The red warning lights had been flashing in the control room of Kepler 4, for 2B, mining colony, for 3 weeks straight. Colony Administrator C. Oaks stared at the atmospheric processor readings, watching the numbers drop steadily toward the danger zone. Without the keeper maintenance protocols, the alien technology that kept their air breathable was slowly failing. Dr. Yuna rushed into the control room, her medical coat stained with the strange blue fluid that leaked from the broken air filtration systems. COEC, we have another problem. The medical bay's auto systems just shut down completely. I am treating patients with hand tools and basic supplies meant for minor injuries. COC rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept properly in days, constantly moving between crisis points throughout the colony. How many people can we keep alive if the main processors fail? Maybe 200 for a few weeks, Yuna answered honestly. We have 3,000 colonists here, COEC, humans, Zellery families, Corvin workers. Even some of those new insectoid species from the Vega system. I cannot treat half of them properly without the automated medical systems. The mining colony had been a success story before the keeper disappearance. Different species worked together, sharing knowledge and building a thriving community on the edge of known space. The Zellery were excellent engineers. The Corvins understood agriculture better than anyone, and humans provided the stubborn determination to make impossible projects work. Now they were all equally helpless, 10-year-old. Doyen sat in the main habitat dome with the other children, human and alien alike. His father had explained that the ships from home might be delayed, but Dojin was smart enough to understand what the adults really meant when they thought the children were not listening. No one was coming. Why cannot we fix the machines ourselves? Asked Kira, a young Zalari girl whose blue skin had grown pale from poor air quality. Doyan looked at the massive keeper device that dominated the center of the dome. It was beautiful in a strange way, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color in the light. But it was completely alien. The control panels showed symbols no one could read, and the internal mechanisms operated on principles that none of their best engineers understood. My dad says the keepers built things differently than us, Doyan explained, like they thought in ways we cannot understand. Elder Thexnul of the Corvin delegation clicked his mandibles sadly. His people had sent their brightest agricultural specialists to this colony, hoping to develop new farming techniques for frontier worlds. Now those specialists were slowly dying, along with everyone else. In my long life, I have seen many colonies fail, Vexnul said in his careful standard language. But always before, there was someone to call for help. Some government or organization that would send rescue ships. Now the entire galaxy seems to have forgotten we exist. Dr. Yuna had been sending distress calls every day since the crisis began. The responses were always the same automated messages. Your request for emergency assistance has been received and is under review by the appropriate authorities. Please stand by for further instructions. After the first week, even those messages stopped coming. The food situation was getting desperate too. The colony had been designed to receive regular supply shipments from the inner systems. Their local food production could feed maybe half the population, and that was when the agricultural systems were working properly. Now, with keeper technology failing throughout the colony, even the hydroponic gardens were starting to die. Sick Hall called another colony meeting in the main dome. The 3,000 residents gathered in groups by species, but the lines between them had started to blur as the crisis brought everyone together. Human miners shared their technical knowledge with Zelari engineers. Corvin farmers worked with human botanists to keep the food systems running. Parents of all species helped care for children whose own parents were working around the clock to keep the colony alive. I will not lie to you, Siok began, his voice echoing in the vast space. The situation is getting worse. Our air processors are failing faster than we can repair them. The communication array is completely dead, so we cannot even send distress calls anymore. The food supplies will last maybe 10 more days at current rationing levels. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Some of the younger children did not fully understand, but they sensed the fear and sadness of the adults around them. Are we going to die here? Asked a human teenager named Jihu, his voice cracking with emotion. Siok looked around at all the faces, human and alien, young and old, all looking to him for hope he did not have. I do not know, he answered honestly, but we are not giving up. Every person in this colony has skills and knowledge. We keep working together. We keep trying to understand these machines. And we keep hoping that somewhere out there, someone remembers we exist. That night, as the artificial lights dimmed to simulate evening, families huddled together in the growing cold. The heating systems were failing too. Another keeper technology beyond their understanding, but in the darkness between the stars, something was moving toward them. Ships that looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the great galactic civilizations. Ugly, functional craft crewed by people who had never learned to accept that some problems were too big to solve. Help was coming, even if no one in the galaxy believed it was possible. Captain Jinwoo stood in the cramped briefing room of the TSV Horizon's Edge, looking at the mixed group of volunteers who had answered humanity's call. The ship had once been an asteroid mining platform, its hull scarred from years of collecting raw materials in dangerous space. Now it carried medical supplies, emergency equipment, and a crew determined to reach the forgotten colonies of the Outer Rim. Let me be clear about what we are facing, Jinwoo said, activating a small holographic display that showed their planned route. The path to the Outer Rim goes through areas that destroyed several keeper ships. We will face unstable wormhole, radiation storms, and gravitational anomalies that our equipment was never designed to handle. Lieutenant Soman studied the navigation charts at her station. She had been flying cargo ships through dangerous space for 15 years. But this mission was unlike anything she had attempted before. Captain, the safest route will take us 6 weeks to reach the first colony. The faster route through the Nexus cluster could get us there in 10 days, but the chance of survival is maybe 30%. Chief Engineer Kyung looked up from his diagnostic tablet, his face grim. Captain, I need to be honest with everyone here. This ship is held together with spare parts and hope. The engines are older than some of our crew members. The life support systems were designed for mining operations, not long-range rescue missions. In hostile space. Dr. Neri checked her medical supplies one more time, knowing that what she carried might be the only help available for thousands of beings across dozens of different species. Unlike the advanced medical systems used by the great galactic civilizations, her equipment was basic but adaptable. She had spent weeks studying alien biology, trying to understand how to treat patients whose physiology was completely different from humans. How many people are we trying to save? asked Communications Officer Hiram, her young face serious with the weight of responsibility. 3.7 million beings across 47 known colonies, Jinwoo answered. But those are just the ones we know about. There could be research stations, mining operations, and trading posts that no one has heard from since the Keeper disappearance. The crew fell silent, understanding the impossible scale of what they were attempting. 12 human ships against a crisis that the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had declared unsolvable. "Why are we doing this?" asked Engineer Minseok, one of the younger volunteers. "I mean, the Galactic Council has ships that are faster, stronger, and better equipped than anything we have. If they cannot help these people, what makes us think we can?" Jinwoo smiled, remembering similar questions from his early days as a rescue pilot. "Because we do not calculate whether something is possible before we try to help people. We see someone in trouble, and we go. That is what humans do." Dr. Nari nodded, thinking of the desperate messages she had intercepted from the Outer Rim colonies. Descriptions of failing life support systems, children getting sick from bad air, medical emergencies that could not be treated without proper equipment. "The other species are not wrong about the dangers," she said, "but they are making the wrong choice about what matters more." The ship's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message from Earth Command. Hiram activated the display, and the official seal of the Galactic Council appeared on screen. "The Galactic Council has formally requested that human vessels cease unauthorized rescue attempts in the Outer Rim territories," the message stated in cold, diplomatic language. "These operations are considered dangerous and potentially destabilizing to ongoing negotiations regarding the Keeper crisis." The crew looked at their captain, waiting for his decision. Through the viewports, they could see the other 11 ships of the human rescue fleet, all waiting for orders. Jinwoo considered the message carefully. The council was not exactly ordering them to stop, but they were making it clear that humanity was acting alone. No support, no backup, no help if things went wrong. "Hiram, log our response," he said finally. "Message received and understood. Horizon's Edge and Rescue Fleet continuing mission as planned." "Sir, they are basically telling us to abandon the mission," Somin pointed out. "I know exactly what they are telling us," Jinwoo replied, "and I know exactly what we are going to do about it." He looked around at his crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that had driven humanity to spread across the galaxy despite being considered primitive by older civilizations. They were not the strongest or the smartest species, but they had something else: the absolute refusal to give up on people who needed help. "Navigation, set course for the Kepler system," Jinwoo ordered. "Engineering, push the engines as hard as they will go. Medical, prepare for multiple alien species with unknown medical needs. Communications, broadcast our approach to any colonies that can still receive messages." As the human fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the dangerous routes that had claimed Keeper ships, Jinwoo thought about the families waiting in the dark. Human children like young Doyon, alien beings like the Zelari girl Kira, elderly creatures like the Corvin elder, Vexnul. They did not know help was coming, but it was stubborn, impossible, completely unprepared help that refused to accept that anyone should be left behind. The galaxy had calculated the odds and given up. Humanity had never been very good at math anyway. The atmosphere on Kepler 442b was failing faster than anyone had expected. Captain Jinwoo crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel beneath the main Keeper processor, his human-sized frame barely fitting in the space designed for the mysterious alien species. Sweat dripped from his face as he tried to understand technology that operated on principles no human had ever seen before. "The quantum resonance chamber is completely unstable," Engineer Kyung reported through the communication system, his voice tight with frustration. "Captain, I have been working with machines my whole life, but this is like trying to fix a dream with a hammer. Nothing about this technology makes sense. Above them, in the colony's main dome, 3,000 beings waited for a miracle. The air was getting thin, and people were starting to show signs of oxygen deprivation. Dr. Yuna moved between patients, treating Zalari children, whose blue skin had turned almost gray, and Corvin adults whose breathing sounded like broken machinery. Dr. Nari worked alongside her, using human medical equipment in ways it was never designed for. She had rigged a cardiac stimulator to help stabilize Zalari circulation, and somehow managed to adapt burn treatment gel to soothe the raw throat membranes that Corvins developed in bad air. This should not work, Dr. Yuna whispered as she watched. Nari treat a young Corvin with equipment meant for human heart patients. Our medicine, their biology, it is completely different. I know, Nari replied, adjusting the settings on another improvised device. But people are dying, so we make it work somehow. 10-year-old Doyan sat with his father Seok, watching the human engineers work with an intensity that amazed the experienced colony administrator. These were not the advanced beings he had imagined would come to save them. They looked tired, confused, and completely out of their depth, but they never stopped trying. Why do they not give up? Doyan asked his father, watching Captain Jinwoo emerge from the maintenance tunnel covered in strange alien lubricants, only to immediately start studying the processor's control panels again. Seok observed the human captain, who had been working for 20 straight hours without rest. I think they do not know how to give up, he said quietly. Lieutenant Soman coordinated with the other rescue ships, each one facing similar impossible situations. The mining platform at Delta 7 had life support systems that were failing, in ways human technology could not even detect. The research station at Proxima C needed medical equipment for species that humans had never encountered before. Captain Soman called out. The resilient Dawn reports they have managed to restore partial power to the Delta 27 platform using improvised solar collectors and mining equipment. The Steadfast Hope says they are treating unknown alien diseases with antibiotics meant for livestock. It was engineer Minsiok who made the first breakthrough. While trying to repair a damaged control interface, he noticed that the Keeper symbols seemed to respond to emotional states rather than logical commands. When he was frustrated, the display showed red patterns. When he felt hopeful, they shifted to blue and green. Captain, he called out excitedly, I think the Keeper technology is not just mechanical. It reads some kind of biological or emotional feedback from the users. Dr. Yuna, who had been treating patients near the main processor, suddenly looked up from her work. That explains something, I noticed, she said. The Corvin engineer Thexnul was helping me with a patient, and the atmospheric readings improved slightly when he was calm and focused. It was a crazy idea. The Keepers had built machines that somehow connected to the emotional and biological states of the beings they served. No human technology worked that way, but maybe human adaptability could bridge the gap. Working together, the human engineers and colony residents created something that should not have been possible. They connected human biomonitors to Keeper control interfaces, allowing the colonists themselves to guide the repairs their bodies needed. Kyung rigged mining equipment sensors to detect the biological signatures of different alien species. Dr. Nori used medical scanners to translate life signs into frequencies that the Keeper processors could understand. It took 18 hours of constant work, with everyone in the colony contributing whatever skills they had. Human miners worked alongside Zalari engineers. Corvin farmers helped calibrate biological sensors they did not understand. Even the children helped by staying calm and focused, their stable emotional states somehow helping the alien technology respond better. When the atmospheric processors finally hummed back to life, filling the dome with clean, breathable air, the silence was almost as overwhelming as the previous crisis had been. This is impossible, whispered the Zalari engineer who had worked with Kyung on the biointerface connections. Keeper technology has never been successfully repaired by anyone except the Keepers themselves. Captain Jinwoo, exhausted and covered in alien machinery fluids, managed a tired smile. Yeah, we get that a lot. But even as the Kepler-442b colonies celebrated their survival, emergency signals were still coming from dozens of other worlds. The rescue fleet moved on to the next crisis, leaving behind functioning systems and a growing legend that was beginning to spread across the outer rim. Through whatever communication channels still worked, the humans had come. And somehow, impossibly, they were making things work. Word began to spread from colony to colony, carried by traders and travelers who had witnessed the impossible. A young species with primitive technology was succeeding where the galaxy's greatest civilizations had failed, not through superior knowledge or advanced equipment, but through the simple refusal to accept that people should be left to die alone in the dark. 6 months after the human rescue fleet first departed for the Outer Rim, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from species across the galaxy had come to witness something that challenged everything they thought they knew about civilization and capability. Ambassador Velthor stood before the massive holographic display, but instead of showing dark dead zones, the Outer Rim territories now glowed with restored communication networks and functioning colonies. The data streaming across his tablets told a story that seemed impossible to believe. 47 colonies restored to full operation, Velthor announced, his forearms gesturing at the display with something approaching wonder. 2.3 million beings evacuated from critical situations. 800,000 more provided with functioning life support and medical systems. All accomplished by, he paused, checking his notes again, converted mining ships, and what the humans call stubborn determination. Commander Wan sat quietly in the human delegation section as rescued colonists testified before the council. Each story was more remarkable than the last, but what struck him most was not the technical achievements, but the consistent theme running through every testimony. COC stepped forward to speak for the Kepler-442b mining colony. His son Doyan stood beside him, healthy and strong, no longer the frightened child who had waited in failing air for help that seemed impossible. The humans did not arrive with technology superior to yours, COK told the assembled representatives. Their ships were older and less advanced than most cargo vessels in this chamber. Their medical equipment was basic compared to what we see in core world hospitals, but they had something else. He looked directly at the Alterian High Counselor, whose crystalline form had dismissed the Outer Rim crisis as unsolvable months earlier. They looked at us and saw people who needed help, not statistics about acceptable losses, not calculations about cost versus benefit. People. Dr. Yuna testified about the medical miracles she had witnessed. Human doctors treating alien diseases with equipment never designed for non-human biology. Engineers rigging mining tools to work as life support systems. Technicians learning to communicate in clicking Corvan languages just so they could better understand what repairs were needed. Dr. Nari saved my daughter's life using a heart monitor designed for humans to treat Zalari respiratory failure, Yuna said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. When I asked her how she knew it would work, she said I did not know, but I had to try anyway. The Corvan elder Thexnul spoke in his careful standard language, his mandibles clicking with emotion. In all my years, I have seen many species cooperate for mutual benefit, but I have never seen beings risk everything for strangers they had never met, whose languages they could not speak, whose biology they did not understand. High Counselor. Zent's crystalline voice carried a note of confusion that had never been heard before. Commander Wan, your species accomplished what our most advanced civilizations deemed impossible. Our computer models, our risk assessments, our technological analyses, all concluded that Outer Rim rescue operations could not succeed. How do you explain these results? Wan stood slowly, thinking of Captain Jinwoo and his crew, who were still out there somewhere in the Rim territories. The last report had described their encounter with a previously unknown species, whose homeworld was dying from solar radiation increases. A problem that had stumped their own scientists for generations, but which human engineers were somehow addressing using improvised radiation shields built from asteroid mining equipment. With respect, Counselor, I do not think we did anything impossible. We just refused to accept that it was impossible. He gestured toward the holographic display, where real-time feeds showed human technicians working alongside alien engineers on dozens of worlds. Former mining ships now served as mobile repair platforms, visiting colonies to maintain the hybrid human-keeper systems that kept millions of beings alive. You calculated the risks, the costs, the probability of failure. We looked at the same situation and saw people who needed help. The mathematics were simple. Either we tried, or we did not try. And humans do not choose, did not try. Communications Officer. Hiram's latest report arrived as the council session continued. The rescue fleet had made contact with the radiation-poisoned world, and Captain Jinwoo's brief message was typical of human efficiency. Situation assessment complete. Local population of 12 million beings at risk from solar flare damage. Estimated time to develop protective solution, unknown. Estimated probability of success, irrelevant. Proceeding with improvised orbital shield construction, using available materials. As the testimony continued, something remarkable happened in the council chamber. Representatives who had spent centuries debating the finest points of diplomatic protocol began asking simple questions. How many people needed help? What could be done? When could they start? The Alterian Empire offered their advanced manufacturing capabilities to produce more human-designed hybrid systems. The Corinthian Trade Federation volunteered their fastest ships to deliver supplies to human rescue operations. Species that had never cooperated before began coordinating their efforts around a single revolutionary principle. No one should be abandoned, Dr. Minji whispered to Commander Wan, as the session transformed from a formal hearing into an impromptu planning meeting for galaxy-wide humanitarian efforts. We really did it, did we not? We changed how they think about helping people. Wan watched alien civilizations that had existed for thousands of years, redesigning their priorities around human concepts of universal responsibility and stubborn hope. No, he said quietly. We just reminded them of something they already knew, but had forgotten how to do. In the Outer Rim territories, human ships continued their impossible work, turning mining equipment into life support systems, medical scanners into translation devices, and stubborn determination into hope for beings who had thought they were forgotten. The galaxy had learned that the greatest technology meant nothing without the simple conviction that everyone mattered. And in the darkness between stars, that conviction continued to shine.